to order. It's 7 o'clock on Tuesday, August 24th, 2021. And this is a continued meeting from our regular meeting of the Village of North Bennington Board of Trustees. We called this special meeting. We continued our regular meeting to this date and time because we need to review the financials and the tax rate for our next fiscal year. And we also have a couple of other items of business that have come up that require discussion, but I don't think require action. So it's okay that we don't have items warned because we won't take official action. So we have a special guest this evening. Mike Cutler is joining us. It was really nice to join us tonight because we have gotten an email about the way that we conduct a hybrid meeting, I'll say. So I think we do a good job of our live meetings in our little village here, and we've gotten used to being on Zoom, but there's some really tricky things that happen when you're trying to do Zoom at the same time as have a live meeting. We experienced those things last time, several things, but there are actually more things I'm sure that could have gone wrong that didn't. But one is, getting feedback and making sure different people's mics are on or off at the right time and speakers are on and off and all that stuff. And also just making sure that for a recording, but also for people that are watching it live, because Cat TV's expertise allows us to stream live as well. We just want to make sure that everybody's able to see and hear the proceedings as best they can. And so Mike had sent along, Mike and Jim had both sent along some suggestions for us as far as equipment. I think most people have had a chance to read that email. It was forwarded to everybody. And Mike was good enough to come tonight just to answer any questions that we might have about the suggestions, and maybe we could talk about like what we think budget wise we'd be looking to spend, and also where the money might come from. Because I think if we had done this a year ago, it would have been easy to just get COVID money to fund these, but nobody was having hybrid meetings a year ago. And so we paid for our Zoom accounts, and that was fine. It made sense. But now it really does seem like we need some more equipment. And I think I'm gonna guess that there is money available to us, but even if there isn't, it's probably a good thing to invest in anyways. But we don't want to, at the same time, we don't want to waste money on a bunch of really high tech or high end stuff that isn't necessary. So I think that's where Mike can help us out. So one of the things that was recommended, Mike, was the OWL system. And so that does seem a little, is that designed to be sort of a user-friendly product that's kind of a mid-range thing, or is that a high-end thing, or is that just an entry-level, like basic type design?
Well, first off, thanks for letting me join your meeting briefly. I'll keep it short and sweet. The OWL Labs came to us because a lot of other access centers were interacting with them, as well as the Vermont state legislatures using them in their small chambers. I would say it is a high-end, easy-to-use device. I haven't used one personally, but from what I've heard and seen, they seem very easy to integrate with Zoom. And for you guys, it would be just getting one really in the train station. So where John is, it's not everyone needs one at home. You're all doing what you are at home, doing that perfectly. It's just a camera that sits probably almost in the middle of the room, and it's a 360 camera, so you don't need to move it. It picks up where that person is sitting. So If John's speaking, it'll show John. If someone's speaking on the other side of John's laptop at the moment, the camera would automatically cut around and show that person because it knows where that person is speaking from and can cut to that because the camera's capturing the whole room. So it's a pretty easy standalone unit. It's a speaker as well. So you could hear people, they can hear you and see you. So it's a pretty neat unit that I think would work really well in the train station room. It's a good size.
Okay,
Well,
and go ahead, Mark.
Well, that wouldn't interfere with his mic being on and that mic being on at the same time, like our computers were interfering with each other?
Sure, yeah. I would say with John, if he wants to have his computer screen up to see everyone there, that's great. I would just mute that laptop, that's all.
So he wouldn't have to use his laptop because the camera, so his laptop could be closed unless he wanted to obviously share documents or something like that.
Correct. Yep.
Screen without that microphone on, his voice would be picked up by the remote camera.
Correct. So that camera would, the new Owl cam would be his camera, but yeah, exactly. If he wants to share a document or something like that, you would need an extra device for that. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yep.
I think that last meeting, we those who weren't in the space definitely suffered a little bit in terms of being able to hear. And you know, I was secret messaging John the whole time saying, change over there. We can't hear anything. Dear God. So you guys obviously detected the same thing. It sounds like this 360 camera. Do we know how much they cost? Because they sound fabulous. I want one now.
Yep. One of them is they retail for $1,000.
Okay.
I'm just
So I
on
feel
Amazon.
like that's, yeah, they're in terms of what they feature and what they can do and integrate in the video world, that's pretty small potatoes.
And so as far as sound goes, Mike, have you been in a meeting where that camera was used? I know I think you said that you don't have one personally, but
No.
have you been, if someone was using one, were you able to hear the mic, was the mic sufficient and good quality?
Yes, we watched a test that the Vermont legislature was doing in the summer before session would start up again. And I have seen a few of them running on our channel. I've noticed that it's that camera. But the sound quality was great. They were just put in the middle of a table. They were both on either ends, and we could hear both of them without moving it. I think it's about 20 feet or so is the radius of picking up the audio. So that's why I feel like the train station is a very good room for this.
Yeah, I totally agree. And as far as the camera goes, so I'm just trying to think it through. If we were to opt for something else, like single unit camera, like we could, I'm assuming that like members could have their computers open and then we could have like a camera for on a guest speaker basically. But the problem would be that microphones always have to be switching in that instance, right? I mean, I guess you could maybe have a standalone mic that was sitting in the middle of the table, but it just seems like it's a way more complicated to try to make sure that you're accounting for every camera and microphone if you're doing it all separately as opposed to using the one unit.
Yeah, the unit is nice because it has the built-in mic and speaker. If you're wanting to see everyone and you all are there and have multiple computers, my suggestion is maybe you could probably figure out a way to connect the Owl, don't quote me, or your Zoom to a bigger TV screen that could sit next to it, and you could see the grid of people who are in the meeting. So you could kind of see them all there. The Owl's functioning as your camera and your speaker for the entire train room.
Oh yeah.
Because it's, like I said, it's capturing everything. So if someone speaks over to your right, the camera's going to find that person and cut that picture right to a little Zoom window and show that person. And then, so it's a pretty fancy thing.
Would it be possible if we go ahead and authorize this purchase, would either you or Jim be willing to, could we pay you to come over and give us a tutorial on how to set it up and use it and stuff like that?
Sure. Yeah. I'd be my first try. Like I say, I haven't used one, but seeing the tests and things, it's a very interesting device, and it seems very easy to integrate with your Zoom account that you have with the town.
And
So,
I'm just
sure.
thinking, you know, regardless of whether you had one or not, like you'd be a lot better at troubleshooting that than I would be. So
Yes, I could certainly help. And if I'm sure Owl Labs, the company, is a great resource as well for setting these things up. So,
right.
Or
So
not
you're
any troubles.
So you're thinking that camera could actually have, because we could all be, even if we had several of us in the train station with our laptops open, our Zoom on, microphones off, so we're only using that one. That camera would actually have a window on our screens. Is that what you're thinking can happen?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
So you would see if you had your laptop open as well, right, as you do now, the Owl Lab would also be creating another camera in that room. Yes. Yep.
Okay, great.
and we're assuming that we're going to be doing this hybrid, even if we're all back in the station, that they're for the foreseeable future, or just for convenience forever. This will be the way we do business. I mean, is that?
I think sorry just with the spacing, you know, some people still are going to be uneasy coming into small spaces. I mean, it's different per meeting location. That's just what we're seeing with other towns we cover.
And I would assume that would end as soon as we get the virus under control, because we would Cat TV would be in the train station at that point, which would make it unnecessary to have the owl.
Yep. And always good for future, if you want someone from the state to come down or not come down and save the trip, you could have that so they could see everyone too.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's a device for anyone that has a future use. But yeah, hopefully, like you said, we're all back together sometime soon.
Well, is there also the possibility that maybe when we have our town meetings, we could still have it Zoom available for people that don't want to attend, so they can watch it from wherever they are, even after COVID? Wouldn't there be uses for it even post COVID?
Yeah, very good. Yep.
Well, so our town meetings are in the school and they're not live.
But could they be? Would there be any validity to that, since Zoom
Owl wouldn't give us that. We're losing you, Tara. I'm losing you. Anyway.
It just delayed for a sec. You're all set now, I think.
So that's my question. Does it make a space that's not currently interactive live? Does it help with that at all? What's it do with the home, the person that's home because they don't want to be there? Does that help in any way, or only when you're at a place where there's that live feed, which is the train station?
I think that we could, so the OWL integrates with a Zoom meeting. So if we want to do any meeting and incorporate Zoom to that meeting, so we could have a regular meeting here at the train station, but we said, well, let's make this a Zoom meeting as well. And then anybody that wants to join in by Zoom could do that, even though we're all here at the train station. I think that's a similar scenario as the town meeting, which is everybody's coming to the school for the town meeting and we're actually conducting the meeting there, but let's just open up Zoom and have the OWL running. And that way, if somebody wants to sign in to Zoom and participate via Zoom, they would actually be able to see and hear everybody, as opposed to just like my computer and your computer.
Right, and engage in conversation.
Right, because they could, if the Zoom is open and they unmute and say something, it'll come out of the speaker of the OWL. So I guess we'd have to make sure to, you know, be able to manage it too. I mean, just so that people aren't interrupting with impunity, but you have to deal with that in regular meetings anyway, so that's fine.
I think where it also would help is we've had these meetings where we've either continued or done a weekend session where Cat TV can't make it.
That's absolutely what I was thinking.
This would also kind of, for those odd occasions where we are in person and Cat TV can't make it for whatever reason, or their technology sometimes, it would be a backup plan to any time where there was any kind of conflict.
Well, and in fact, it's not, I think that a lot of times they're really great to do that, to come to those extra meetings, but it's actually not in their contract. Their contract just says like the one meeting a month or whatever. So they often will do an extra meeting for us, but they're not actually obligated to.
Sure.
I think they can, but we're supposed to pay extra. So, yeah.
So that's what I'm getting at. It gives us more flexibility in different locations if we get used to just always creating a Zoom link for every meeting that we have.
Yep.
And that gives people access to places where we wouldn't have live feed from direct cable, which, as I understand it, is just the train station now.
And that's also limited too. Like if somebody's watching Facebook Live, they'd have to do something like call in or call somebody's phone to try to participate. They're just
we actually, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was saying, we actually don't use cable anymore. We're full on internet. So we stream wherever there's an internet connection. We don't need any of the cable drops anymore.
Oh.
So we can go from the school, train station, wherever there's any cell service as well, if that's a thing too. So
Wow,
there's
awesome.
no internet.
Any other questions for Mike? This is really great. I think we're probably on board here. And I don't think it's an expense just like any expense. So we just have those month to month. I don't think it's a special thing that requires a motion or anything like that. But as long as there's no objection from the trustees, I think we'll just go ahead with the purchase.
Just quickly, where do we through whom do we acquire such device?
That's a good question for Mike too. I mean, Mike, I see that you can just order it from Amazon, but should we order it directly through OWL, or would it be better?
Yeah, I don't have experience with ordering it, but if the pricing's the same, I probably would order it through OWL just in case they have a different warranty. I'm sure that's, okay. I don't know, but I would go through them directly. That's just me personally.
Okay. Great. And I guess we could just throw out a feeler. I mean, why not? If we maybe contact Dane Whitman or somebody that has the legislative, and if there's a state purchasing thing for that, we wouldn't want to miss out on that, but I'm guessing there probably isn't, but if there's some discount available through the state, we'll just check on that first before we order. Okay, great. Thank you very much, Mike. Appreciate your time.
Yep, you're welcome. No problem. Great to see you all. Have a good night.
And so our agenda is kind of informal tonight. So I think that rather than doing our budget discussion, unless that was something that Abby had a burning desire to listen to and comment on as well, why don't we just talk briefly about the proposed pole top cell, I don't know if they even use the word tower, but it's I think it's wordsmithing here that they're trying to do to make it seem like less than it is. But this is a proposal for Mechanic Street, basically on Abby's property, and it is within the right of way. So technically they can do that. Or a pole could be placed there because it is in the right of way and they're considered to be a utility. But I think, as we will discuss here, this is not something that the trustees want to see happen. So Abby, did you want to comment on how you found out about this and what your feelings are?
Sure. Yeah, I'm more than happy to. Hi, everybody. Thanks for letting me join. So I received a certified.
Oh, if Abby, hold on just one second. Let me, I think we're having a technical issue here.
Property. So I was like, what is, oh no. Hang on. I think, hear me now? Am I back?
It's catching up. It's just, I think there
Yeah.
may have been a, like a connection issue. So it paused for a second and then it caught you back up. So I think we're good now.
Okay. So basically, yeah, they want to put this tower up with what looks like a transformer at the top right on my property. There are no poles on that side of the road. At first I was like, well, it might blend in with a utility pole, but it's so bizarre. I don't really understand it. And then I see that there's a tower going up right now, right in Bennington.
Yeah. Abby, hold on another second. So I think we've gotten, is everybody having a similar issue?
Sure.
Okay. So Abby, I think there might be a little bit of a connection issue. I heard, could you do me a favor and turn off your camera?
Yep, absolutely.
Just because sometimes that helps, because obviously the,
Bandwidth, yeah.
what you're saying is really important, although it's very pleasant to have the image of you as well. But we want to make sure we hear everything that you're saying.
Sure.
And so I heard up to the point that, that the letter kind of came out of the blue. You wanted to sort of give the benefit of the doubt and sort of thought about the aesthetics and where the thing would be placed. But then when you really read the details, it just didn't make any sense at all as to what they were trying to do here.
That's correct. Yeah, I don't really understand it at all. I don't know. I mean, even if there were one that would go up for some reason, I don't know why they wouldn't put it in alignment with the other utility poles so it sort of blends in. I'm not like entirely opposed to a cell tower, but I remember them floating the balloon. I hope my connection is a little better. I remember them floating the balloon and it was sort of behind the town garage. Yeah, I don't know why they would put one up just where there are no poles in.
So the proposal that they're suggesting here is nowhere close to what that balloon was floating. So this is a pole top installation is taller than a regular utility pole by, I think we found out maybe like 15 feet or maybe maximum 20 feet higher than a regular utility pole. So it's not the same height as that balloon that was floated, but it's designed to go on the top of an existing utility pole. So actually what you were suggesting is putting another pole in line with those other ones, but I don't even know if we would support that because there's already poles there. And they would try to say, well, those poles aren't sufficient to hold that, it would be too much weight and we'd have to install a new pole. Well, okay, so put in a new pole and remove one of the old ones. And, that would be the thing that makes sense. But none of it makes sense to me because we have no idea what the cell phone service is going to look like once the tower that we've approved goes in. Mm-hmm. And my guess is that we're not going to have any problems with cell phone service in North Bennington anymore. Unless, I guess there's a possibility that like directly under the tower, there may still be a bit of an issue, but the tower that we approved is designed to have multiple carriers on it. And that's what the state wants carriers to do, is they call it co-locating. They want them to co-locate so that there's a minimal impact on the aesthetics of the village, especially a historic village, and where they're proposing is within the historic downtown district. So we don't feel that this is appropriate given the planning and the village plan that we've approved here. And so we plan to file an objection to this with the state. And I think that it would, if the more people that do, I think the better though. So if you want to, I think it probably talks about what right you might have to object in the letter, but if it doesn't, you could go to the, what does, Matt, do you have the regulatory agency on the tip of your tongue there? I'm forgetting what it is, which one it is, but
Let me see if I have.
the public utility board or something like that, that it would, they'd have all the information there about a 248A application and
Okay.
how to object to it.
Yeah, that I see that on the paperwork they sent me. And I am like, I'm just trying to be like reasonable, but I do not want to see it anywhere either. Like, I don't understand. It seems redundant and unnecessary to me entirely, you know? And so I'd rather it not be anywhere at all for sure. So I'm definitely going to file my objection. It seems just completely like, I don't know, just silly for them to place it anywhere around here like that. So that's what I'll do.
Yeah, I think I also just, I'm sorry that it is burdensome for people to have to file the objections when they came to us last year and asked, and we basically told them, well, I don't think we'd support that. And then they just went ahead and filed the thing anyway. So,
Yeah.
but
What's the company?
It's
What's the-
Tilson,
so the,
US Cellular.
Okay.
that's right.
Which,
Tilson's installing it, but US Cellular is the provider.
and is that not the same company that was looking for the bigger tower over on the other side of the road?
Yeah, I think it was not. I think,
Could have been Verizon.
no, it was, well, right. So carriers, it was definitely Verizon that approached us for the town garage property.
Right.
But I think that Tilson may have been the contractor that they used.
Right. So the reason that, from my perspective, that they're, that they won't co-locate, even co-locate their non-tower on a pole across the road is that those poles are owned by other people. And so even if they could get the permission to do so, that would cost them something. And per usual, I think, with my experience with this, is just looking for the cheapest way to do what they do. And they've some federal license to do so, in the sense of not needing permission. But this is ridiculous, and I'm with everybody else on this, that this really shouldn't happen. If in fact it does, then as a community, we'll take it from there, I guess is all I would say.
So I would assume that part of your objection when you write that in there is if you mention that there is currently construction of a cell tower designated to just this type of application. And because it is Vermont's goal to encourage co-locating, that would be a fairly strong argument for your objection to an addition.
Absolutely. And I don't know if it matters, and I have to reach out to Larry Powers' son, Tim Powers, but I know that when Larry Powers owned this property, he did have it, I don't know if the right word is, pardon my ignorance, but it's either registered or it's some sort of like bird there's something that has to do with bird sanctuary or there's some level of like nature protection that he gave this property. So I don't know if that's an issue but yeah, it doesn't make sense. Co-location makes so much more sense considering the fact that the other tower is going up just a short distance from here. I just can't imagine, even if they give you this schematic that looks sort of unobtrusive, it's not going to be. And it really affects the property next to me too. I'm wondering if they were also served a notice as well. The condo property right next to me, it would be right between us. And it's not, I probably shouldn't tell you guys this, but there's like a little back driveway behind my property as well. I don't use it, but like the lawn guys do, and they wouldn't be able to do that anymore either. So it's like, it's preventing me from using my property the way that I would. So
If they didn't notify all abutting properties properly, then that's another nail in their coffin. I mean, they have to do this properly. I think just trying to see if anybody really gives a crap. And I think that they'll find that in this community we do.
Okay.
And, I could be way off, but I think as John was about to say, we are having our attorneys draft a formal response, which is required within 60 days. So that'll happen, and any further supporting grievances from others would be welcome.
Great. I'm on it.
Okay, very good. And if there is the information listed in the letter or in the notice, there's a bunch of stuff online that can help you to form the right language for your objection.
Okay, perfect. Thank you guys. I
All right,
appreciate
thank
it.
you for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Good to see you.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so the other item of business that we have tonight is to go over the budget issues with Mary, who has provided us, as usual, with amazing documentation of our options and the places where we could modify things if we wanted to. I'm going to play stupid on this meeting because there was something I think that I didn't understand in the I guess it was the budget session back in December or January, where it said that, where we said, well, I guess I just want to, can you just give me a timeline as to how we do the budget, collect the taxes, spend the money, and so in terms of calendar year and fiscal year and when these things, just because I think I'm a little at sea in terms of, I know where we are in the process, but the thing that doesn't click for me is when we collect the tax revenue versus when we spend, because it seems like if we're collecting taxes by October, our fiscal year doesn't start until July 1st, does it?
Correct. It is a little cattywampus in a way.
So we had talked, I'm sorry,
Yes.
but I just want to complete my thought and then I'll let you take. So if we collect the taxes in October and the spending doesn't occur until July 1, then there shouldn't be any reason to have to borrow, which we had talked about before.
Because
that's
we
where I'm confused.
Go back a year.
Yes, we actually collect 5 months after the fiscal year begins. So the fiscal year began on July 1st, 2021. Those tax bills, we are setting that rate right now for what those tax bills will be. Those tax bills come out in September and they're due in November.
I see.
So where the borrowing comes in is if there is no fund balance in June, a municipality would need to borrow from July, August, September until revenues begin to roll in. So our budget, or any municipal budget on a fiscal year, we develop the budget in November, December, January. It is approved by the voters at the annual meeting, typically March, this time a little bit later. At the time we develop our budget, I provide an estimate, what I think the tax rate impact will be. But I'm only guessing that because at that time, I will presume there's no fund balance, and I just make an estimate of what I think the inflation rate would be or what the grand list might be.
Mhm.
So to that note, when we compiled the budget that was approved by voters a couple months ago, I estimated for you that the tax rate could increase anywhere from 16 cents to 5 cents, depending on what the grand list did and whether we had carry forwards and whether we elected to use them or not.
Yeah.
So that's why you don't know until now. Now, typically other municipalities would have had their grant list a couple of weeks ago and would have made these decisions in the last regular meeting. North Bennington is that little bit different because we also pay a municipal tax to the town of Bennington as well. We have District 1 who pays only their education tax. It doesn't affect the muni tax, but it affects the education rate, which is why I kind of wait until the other municipalities have their grand lists done, their tax bills done, and then the NEMRC programmer can take everything and compile the North Bennington grand list and rates. So at this point in time, this is where municipal boards get to decide what they want to do. A municipal board could say there is now an unexpected expense that has come up. Say your owl cost $10,000 and not $1, and it was something that you needed to do. You would simply put in to this tax rate up here an unusual item, and that would be raised even though the voters did not vote for that particular item. You have the option of doing that at this time. Likewise, you are going to be looking to see, okay, now that we know we have a highway fund balance, what do you choose to do with that? Did that answer your question at all?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah, that was great. And I think it's really clear and it makes sense that you've got to, the taxpayers have to approve the budget before you start spending it.
Right.
So
even though at the time, the taxpayers really can't be assured what it is going to do to the subsequent tax rate.
Right.
and in fact, but the other thing, in fact, is that it's almost like paying the bills in November is 4 or 5 months late, really, because we've already started spending. And
You mean paying the bills or collecting the bill? Oh, paying people's tax bills.
Yeah, I
Oh,
mean,
people are welcome to pay their tax bill
Right.
as soon as they get it.
right.
A lot
Um,
of communities do quarterlies. I realize that we're kind of unusual that way, and that many small communities require quarterly payments.
Yeah, some do. Most throughout the state do like we do. Most
Yeah.
municipalities do once, some twice.
I'm not
Does that-
suggesting that. I'm just saying sometimes
Yeah.
it's easier for people so they can prepay even before they know what the total rate is and what, you know,
Well,
you don't want to see any, you don't want that.
no, you don't, no. You're gonna add a whole lot of complexity and
All right,
administrative cost.
never mind.
Thank you. So,
Okay, great. So with that in mind, I think all the numbers, that we're looking at, at least for me, would, are just a little bit clear, but they were already very clear, so I won't want to say that. But so what worksheet shall we look at first, Mary? And I can pull it up on the shared screen.
That'd be great.
well, it depends to me as to whether the trustees want to entertain the scenario presented. And if you do, go to the spreadsheet, the trustee workshop, or the trustee worksheet, and go to the compare tab.
Okay.
And that you can at least start the discussion with scenario 1 and what the tax rate would look like.
Let's see if I can.
So now go down to that compare tab at the bottom. At the
Oh.
bottom, there's different tabs. See the one that says compare? Thank you. So under this scenario, the municipal tax rate would be 0.8136, the subtotal. Then you add in the local share, and North Bennington does a local share, which is the portion, the education portion of veterans property tax discount for under $10,000 of income. And then North Bennington raises the education portion of that, but it's in the municipal rate. So that total rate this year under the scenario that had been presented to you as trustees comes up to a mill rate of 0.8205, which is 1.56 cents more than last year, a 1.93% increase in that rate, and it would be an estimated $16 for each $100,000 of a person's assessed value. So a person with a $200,000 assessed value of a home would be paying an additional $32 in property tax under this scenario. And as you can see, the one of the increases are the three components. There's a highway, a general, and a fire. There is a 0.5%, excuse me, and I'm rounding, a 0.5 cent increase in the highway over last year, a 0.15 cent increase. You got to move the decimal too to get cents, and a 0.7 cent increase in the fire department's rate.
Okay.
And I think it's just important to point out that, to those who maybe are unclear of the total tax bill, this is the municipal tax. This is independent of the education tax. So when that all gets blended, that's a different thing. But that's not something our board has control of.
That's correct. I had put this bottom portion in here simply for you as trustees.
Yes.
But it really is not germane to setting the municipal tax. That should be, what is it that residents should expect for the good running of their community?
Shall I go back to the,
Please.
okay.
So under the scenario that had been presented here, the top portion is what was all the budgeted expenses. When the budget is presented, the revenue lines, there are some items of revenue that are also budgeted, but I'm listing them separately here for transparency. As well, they are separately listed in the approved budget, the version that is in our annual report. We had a very substantial carryover or excess fund balance in the highway for a number of reasons. First and foremost, we did not do many of the road projects that were originally planned. COVID was the biggest issue for that there. The other thing is we had an additional highway support from the state. We get 3 a year. We actually got an additional one. We didn't spend those funds. We did not spend as much net in new equipment as had originally been thought, because there was sale of equipment and to be added or to be netted into that sum. And then there were a couple of other smaller line items that were not fully spent. I believe there was some excess in the road salt. We didn't use all of the this past year. We didn't use all of the budget for health insurance. 2 other things that come to mind. So what I had proposed is taking a significant chunk of the highway balance, carrying it over to road repairs that could and would have been done had it not been, for extraneous circumstances. As well, we had talked about paying down the big truck loan. We did not do that last year because we wanted to see where the year actually did shake out. You may recall we did make a payment towards the truck fund. We did make an additional payment towards that balance, but that came out of the reserve because we had a little more in that reserve than we really needed according to the long multi-year schedule. Nevertheless, it's a strong recommendation on my part that we pay this down. It only helps taxpayers in the long run to pay off debt as promptly as possible. And then we have, even though there is a budget for road repair for the current year, there are a number of projects, Pleasant, School, Bank, Mechanic, that Norm had listed out. I think George, doing something on George was another one. But no, not the one that kicks up all the dust. So sidewalks, there's some, I know the trustees have talked about it before. There's plenty of work that could be done with sidewalks. Carry it over. If we always pursue grant opportunities when they're there. So if grants come up to subsidize some of the projects, so be it. You're in a better position this same time next year as you would be otherwise. Because like I said, when we go look at the next budget, all things being equal, it's probably going to be a much higher potential increase in taxes than you're looking at right here with 1 cent. If you don't carry this over and take care of some of the projects.
Okay. Any questions on that?
I'm in full support of what she's getting at here. I think it makes fiscal sense. It's just,
Yeah.
I mean, the other scenarios are even a lower tax rate, and 1 cent is better than we've seen in a long time. Well, that's not actually true.
No, last year was actually marginally down. I
Yeah.
mean, overall, it was flat. And you could make this flat this year. You could make this flat this year if you wanted to force that by dropping the 35 to, 32 or 30.
No.
But
That's just, in my
It's-
opinion, that only sets us up for a higher increase next year.
I agree with you, Mark. It
Because
does.
you're
But
always, if you're not planning ahead, then you're catching up.
Yep.
I totally agree with you. Things are never cheaper next year.
Yeah, Matthew, you remember this because we've had this conversation a lot. I would much rather show a moderate, steady increase every year than the roller coaster of
Yes.
ups and cents and then flatlining and then up. When you show drastic changes like that, I think it's just a lack of planning and understanding what the nature of this is, and that's bringing people along slowly while you're still being true to what you're trying to do, and that is constantly making improvements, taking advantage. Like, I think using this extra money to flatline everything would be a huge mistake, because then we're just going to ask for that same money back in 2 years because now we're behind the game. So I think you've done a wonderful job with this, and I couldn't have come up with a plan, but I can certainly agree with it.
Absolutely. Mary has demonstrated incredible, I think, fiscal responsibility and knowledge of how to do this the right way, and I really applaud it. And I'm in favor of this scenario, 100%.
It would be one thing in my mind if taxes had been and budgets had been created just as a wish list without any need in mind, but there was a need. There is a need. And the fact that the project couldn't have been done next year doesn't mean it wasn't necessary or it won't be necessary. And so Mark is absolutely right, in my opinion, as are you, Matt, that it's going to have to be done sooner rather than later, or some point. So you're going to ask for it now, or you're going to ask for a whole lot more later.
Yeah, because every year you don't do something that should be done, add to that cost of that project, because now you're doing more work to keep it up. So especially with the way prices of materials are increasing, and I mean, you're better off to just plan it, get it done, because if you let the road deteriorate one more year, it's that much more you're going to have to do to get it back up to in good shape. So if you can do I think we've done a much better job at a regular schedule of trying to keep up on necessary improvements without going overboard, and not letting things get to a point where we're catching up too much, as much as we can for a size community we have. I mean, we could certainly do a heck of a lot more if we had twice the road crew and twice the money, but it's just not where we are.
And the other thing the trustees, you guys did in the last budget, is there were smaller amounts, but gradually increasing and identifying reserve needs, whether it's fire department, whether it's trees, whether it's, highway stuff. And so over time, we're putting smaller amounts into the budget that isn't overwhelming. But then every 10 years, when the big purchase is needed to be made, you don't have to have that spike that Mark was referring to. You don't have to have that roller coaster. It's already there because you've taken smaller bites of it all along.
Yep.
Okay, do we want to take a look at any of the other documents that we have, or? So really, this isn't a budget meeting. It's not, we're not budgeting anything. We're really just allocating our carryovers.
Yes.
And setting the tax rate.
You're
Yep.
determining, yes, at the end of the day, once you vote as to what you want this to be, I'll print this out without any highlights. And I'll have it on Lori's door for all of your signatures. It does require your signatures, please.
Okay. Well, what requires the signatures?
This page that you're looking at right now, I'll just clean it up to take the notes off and the highlights out.
Go down to the final,
Okay.
the final rate
Uh,
that we're voting on, which is going to be how the tax bills are printed.
It's going to be the 0.8136 plus the 0.0069.
Yep.
And that's on the compare tab. You can see what the total is. 0.8205.
Yep. A 1.93% increase,
right here.
Yes.
which results in a $22. So we're looking at
It's a 1 point, no, don't look at that one. Look at the previous line. It's the 16-cent municipal tax will result in a 1.56 increase in the mill rate, which is approximately 16 cents on per $100,000 of an increase.
$16 per $100,000.
$16, thank you.
Right. Yep. And if you look back, last year it was 1 and the year before it was 68. Are those good numbers?
Yes.
So, yeah.
And like I say, I have this going back to 2014, if anyone was really curious.
So how do you want this in a motion? Make a motion to approve a total municipal rate of 82.05 cents, which is an increase of 1.93% over the previous year. Is that what we're
So
looking
Matt,
for?
I'll just correct that to say 0.8205. You said 82.05.
I'm sorry,
That's okay. I just wanted to make.
0.8206, which is
Oh, fine.
82 cents, right?
Yes, the mill rate is 0.8205. So yes,
Which is an increase of 0.0156.
in the mill rate,
In the
which
mill
does,
rate,
yeah.
which is resulting in a 1.93% increase over last year,
Mhm.
which results in a $16 increase per $100,000 assessment over last year.
Correct.
Okay, the motion's been made.
Second.
It's been seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye. And I heard from all 5 trustees on that. We have a unanimous motion, and so we will go ahead and circulate that. Well, we'll post it on Lori's door and everybody will go ahead and sign that.
Question, Mary, so now that we've set this, when will this bill show up, and notwithstanding the issues related to local postal service issues, when might this show up in
In our mailboxes?
yes,
Okay. I was emailing with our NEMRIC programmer earlier today. I floated the 2 dates of September 7th or September 8th. And so he will get back to me on which day might be good with him. I didn't want to run too close into, right after a holiday weekend. But it takes us a morning to get them done, and then a day or so to get them printed and mailed. So let me see, where is September? I can't see the calendar. But I would say by September 10th, they'll all be in the mail.
Okay. And as far as when you get them, who knows? But
Yes.
Yeah, somewhere a week.
Now, there's always the fact that there are some people who late file their homestead, and I would encourage anybody to late file it rather than not at all. And so periodically there are adjustments that do come from the state. So the first big adjustment comes on September 15th. But rather than wait, because 90% of the people will get a correct tax bill, if not 99, some people may get a corrected tax bill after the original goes out.
Right. Well, I can't stress enough how thankful I am for your leadership with this budget element of the village. And at the same time, I kind of wish that you could maybe consider being a member of this board. Because
I would love to train the next treasurer.
well, that's the thing. So I really think you'd be great member of this board, but we've got to find a treasurer that lives up to your last 5 years. How many years you been here?
Since 2014.
5, 6, 7 years of
Yeah. I'm trying to catch up to Lori.
Well,
You'll
the good thing,
you'll never catch up unless she,
the
gives
good
up
thing
on this.
is that I think it's easy to have oversight, right? I mean, if you move to a trustee position, then it's not like you're not going to see the budgets anymore. You're still, they'll
No,
still.
I would be delighted to
Well,
to talk to someone who'd be interested.
And that's something for all of us to think about, because and the other thing is that it's not, the treasurer position isn't necessarily restricted to North Bennington. So
It'd be great if it was.
it would be great if we could find somebody, because I think that makes the most sense. But if there's somebody in Bennington or Shaftesbury or something that.
And also bear in mind, there are 2 separate positions. There is the treasurer position and there is the tax collector position. So that's not to say that somebody might not want to start out with doing one and not both, and walk before they run.
right. Well,
Okay, well, I think that's our business tonight. There are a number of documents that I have signed on behalf of the board. I can just let you know what those things are, just for your information. We have a grant and aid document from VTrans, which is just the FY22 grant and aid money, which is a $4,500 award, which we have a 20% match for. There's also, I've sent out, I've copied you on a lot of this stuff, but I sent out the offer of employment to Shane Brownell, and he has accepted the position and has given Norm the copy of the acceptance, and should be starting the Tuesday after Labor Day. Let's see here. There's also a Better Roads grant that we need reimbursement for. So I've signed a document there. And the agreement for services through BCRC for the hazard mitigation plan grant. So just to keep y'all in the loop on those things. And September will be my last meeting. So if we want to, yeah, so I don't know. I don't, there's no issue with the board continuing on with a vacancy. That's not improper or illegal to do, but someone does have to take over the chair position. That's a technical thing that we can do next month. And then whoever wants to step into the vacant position can do that at any time. So.
Sounds like a plan.
Question?
Yes.
There's also a vacancy with the zoning administrator.
Oh, yes.
And if I might, I would just like to do a huge shout out to Chris Damon. He has been absolutely terrific to work for or work with. And I think he would do a great job training someone else, but just in the interactions that I've had with Chris, he's done a great job for this little village.
Yeah, thanks for that, Mary. I think that's important.
Yeah,
John, did you have any conversation with him?
I have not. That is on my to-do list. I will get to that. I do want to have a chat with him, just an exit interview essentially. So
Yeah. About his experience and what
Yeah.
worked and what didn't and all that.
yeah.
It sounds like we might have one or two interested parties in the ZA, and
Yeah, it's
we will update as that becomes clearer. But yeah, that's an opportunity for anybody. It's a paid position based on the hours that they work doing what's required of them. And you know, it's not an easy job. It's not a full-time job. It's a thankless job, I'm sure, but it's a good way to serve the community. And anybody interested, contact John or myself or anybody else on the board.
yeah. All right. Anything else for the good of the order? We'll wrap.
Mosquitoes are killing us out here, buddy.
All right. So without objection, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
All right. And all those in favor indicate by turning off your computer and going and doing something more fun than this.
Oh, come on.
Night all.
Night.